I get it, you've probably spent hours scrolling through endless listings, staring at those glossy photos of a sleek black tower that promises unmatched power and future-proof performance. Then you read a handful of reviews that sound almost identical, and you start wondering, will this machine actually hold up when I plug in my 3D rendering software, my CAD files, and maybe a couple of VMs, or will it sit on my desk looking impressive while barely handling a day-to-day workload? That hesitation is real, and the last thing you want is to drop a good chunk of cash on a workstation that feels more like a glorified hobby-grade PC. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's break down why the HP Z4 G5 workstation Intel Xeon W, 16GB DDR5, 512GB SSD might be the right fit for you, and where it could fall short. First off, this is a tower aimed squarely at professionals who need reliability for intensive tasks: engineers, video editors, architects, and anyone who runs compute-heavy applications on a daily basis. If you're a freelancer who does occasional photo editing or a student who needs a solid machine for typing papers, you'll probably be overpaying for capabilities you'll never tap. The biggest draw is the Xeon W processor. It's a workstation-grade chip, meaning it's built for sustained workloads and has support for ECC memory, which can catch and correct single-bit errors. In practice, that translates to fewer crashes when you're running long simulations or rendering a 4K animation for hours on end. People who've moved their render farms from consumer CPUs to Xeon often notice a smoother, more predictable performance curve, especially under thermal stress. That's a concrete advantage you can feel when your software hits a bottleneck. The CPU doesn't just throttle, it keeps chugging along. However, the Xeon W in this model is paired with only 16GB of DDR5 RAM. For many professional scenarios, that number feels modest. A single high-resolution texture or a complex assembly in SolidWorks can easily chew through 16GB, forcing the system to swap to the SSD. The 512GB SSD itself is fast, but it's not a replacement for a larger pool of memory. If your workflow routinely involves large datasets like VFX frames, GIS data, or large-scale machine learning models, you'll find yourself adding RAM pretty soon after purchase. The good news is the Z4's tower chassis makes upgrades straightforward. You can pop in extra DIMM slots without needing to dismantle the system, but that's an extra expense you should plan for. Storage is another practical point. The SSD is NVMe compatible and will boot Windows 11 Pro lightning fast, which is a nice boost for everyday tasks. Yet, at 512GB you'll quickly run out of space if you keep raw footage, project files, and OS updates on the same drive. Many professionals adopt a two-drive strategy, use the SSD for the OS and active projects, and attach a larger SATA or external NAS for archival. The Z4 comes with a serial ATA/600 controller, so adding a secondary drive is painless, but you'll need to budget for that extra hard drive or an external enclosure. Connectivity-wise, the tower includes a Gigabit Ethernet port, which is essential for studios where you have to pull large files over a network. The downside is the lack of built-in Wi-Fi 6. If your office relies on wireless connections, you'll need an adapter. It's not a deal-breaker, but it adds one more component to your setup. The USB layout is decent, a mix of USB-C, USB 3.2, and legacy USB 2 ports, allowing you to plug in a range of peripherals without hunting for the right cable. One of the subtler trade-offs shows up in power consumption. Xeon workstations are not as power-hungry as their desktop counterparts, but they still draw more than a typical office PC. If you're environmentally conscious or dealing with a limited power budget, you'll notice the higher wattage on your monthly electricity bill. That's an operational cost that often gets ignored when people focus only on the purchase price. Now, who should definitely consider this box? If you're a freelance video editor who needs to render 1080p footage on tight deadlines, a CAD engineer who runs simulations that take hours, or a developer who spins up multiple virtual machines for testing, the Z4's reliability and performance under load will likely justify the cost. The workstation's ACC memory support and Xeon processor give you a safety net that consumer-grade rigs don't provide, reducing the risk of data corruption during long tasks. On the flip side, if you're a gamer or a content creator who mainly works with compressed video, you might be better off with a high-end gaming PC that offers more graphics horsepower for the same price. The Z4 doesn't come with a dedicated GPU, you'll have to install one yourself. That's fine if you have a specific GPU in mind, but it means the initial box is a blank canvas rather than a ready-to-go solution. For users who expect a plug-and-play experience straight out of the box, this extra step could be a hassle. Another group that would probably skip